3,600 miles, one engine, no radio, no parachute. Charles Lindbergh stripped everything out of that cockpit because every pound he saved was another mile of fuel. He left Long Island at 7:52 in the morning on May 20th, 1927, in a monoplane so heavy with gasoline that it barely cleared the telephone wires at the end of the runway. The newspapers had already named him the Flying Fool. 6 other pilots had attempted this crossing before him. Most were never found. 22 hours in, somewhere over the black Atlantic, he started seeing things. Not blurs, not shadows, shapes. Ghostly figures, weightless, riding in the cockpit beside him, speaking, offering wisdom. Lindbergh wrote about them later, years later, in the same calm voice he used to describe instrument readings, as if hallucinating passengers while flying blind over the ocean in the dark was just a thing that happened. He'd been awake for over 50 hours. He buzzed the surface of the ocean at 10 feet, just to feel the cold spray keep him conscious. It didn't work for long. He landed in Paris at 10:22 p.m. on May 21st. A crowd of 150,000 people surrounded the plane and nearly tore it apart. Some stripped fabric from the fuselage. Others lifted him over their heads and passed him through the mob for half an hour before French military pilots fought their way in and got him to a car. He had become, in a single night, the most famous person on Earth. But here's the thing about Charles Lindbergh. And here's the thing about all of them, every human being we're going to talk about on this channel. The crossing wasn't the story. The crossing was what happened after they ran out of every reasonable reason to turn back. It's what happened when the fog closed in and the hallucinations started and the easy choice was right there. Turn the plane around, go home, stay alive. And they didn't. That's what we do here. We find the people who were first. Not the ones history decided to celebrate, the real ones. The first person to survive something that shouldn't be survived. The first person to cross a line that wasn't supposed to exist. The first person to do the thing that everyone else had decided was impossible or insane or both. Some of them became legends. Some of them were erased from the record almost immediately. And some of them were just quietly, without any real fanfare, the reason that everything that came after was possible. Take Sushruta. He lived in the city of Kashi, what we call Varanasi today, on the bank of the Ganga, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, somewhere around 600 BC. He wrote a medical compendium, a long one, the Sushruta Samhita, 186 chapters covering anatomy, embryology, toxicology, surgical instruments, and 300 distinct surgical procedures, classified into 8 operational categories. His students practiced incisions on gourds and watermelons before touching a patient. He used 125 instruments of his own design, some with edges, he wrote, fine enough to divide the hairs on skin. He rebuilt a nose. The procedure Nasika Sandhana, rhinoplasty, involved measuring the damaged area with a leaf, cutting a flap of skin from the cheek to the exact same dimensions, and folding it back over the wound while keeping the base attached so blood supply wasn't severed. It worked. More than 2,000 years later, a British surgeon watched the technique being performed in India in 1793, documented it, and published it in the Gentleman's Magazine of London in October 1794. European plastic surgery traces its lineage directly back to a man who was practicing in Varanasi when the Roman Empire didn't exist yet. Hippocrates showed up 150 years after Sushruta. Galen came later still. But here's the part that's genuinely strange. Sushruta also needed to study anatomy, and in 600 BC, cutting open a dead body was religiously forbidden. Corpses were sacred. So Sushruta let bodies decompose in the river, and when the flesh had loosened, he scraped through the layers by hand, systematically documenting what he found underneath. He wrote about fetal development. He wrote about genetic inheritance. He described the 7 layers of skin and named the diseases that could affect each one in adult life. He did all of this without being able to cut into a corpse. That's not just a surgeon. That's someone who refused to accept the limits of what the available tools could tell him. May 29th, 1953, 11:30 a.m. Edmund Hillary, a beekeeper from New Zealand, 33 years old, his boots frozen solid in the tent the night before, stood on the summit of Mount Everest with a Tibetan-born Sherpa named Tenzing Norgay. They had been trying to reach this point since 6:30 that morning. The final push included a 40-foot vertical rock face, smooth except for a crack running up one side, that no one had ever climbed before, and no one had mapped. Hillary wedged himself into that crack and inched upward. Norgay followed on the rope. They had 15 minutes on top. Hillary took photographs. Both of them searched the summit for any sign that George Mallory, the British climber who had disappeared up here in 1924, might have made it before them. They found nothing. Hillary buried a small crucifix in the snow. Norgay, a Buddhist, left an offering of food. The news was sent out by coded message, carried by runners over passes, transmitted to London in time for it to arrive on the morning of June 2nd, the day of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. The BBC led with the mountain, not the Queen. Tenzing, because he was not a citizen of a Commonwealth nation, received a lesser honor. Hillary was knighted. And here's the detail that didn't come out until after Tenzing's death in 1986. He wasn't actually Nepali, as the official record claimed. He was born in Tibet, in a village called Moyan, near the mountain of Makalu, a day's trek from Everest. The Nepalese government had kept it quiet. A Tibetan summit would complicate things politically, given that Tibet was by then under Chinese control. The man who climbed the roof of the world for the first time wasn't quite who anyone said he was. And his partner, the famous beekeeper, got the knighthood. Back to Gagarin, April 12th, 1961, 9:07 a.m. Moscow time. Yuri Gagarin, 27 years old, 5'5", is sitting inside a sphere 2.3 meters in diameter, strapped to a modified R-7 intercontinental ballistic missile, a rocket originally engineered to carry a 3 to 5 megaton nuclear warhead. He is whistling a love song. The Vostok 1 capsule had no backup retro rocket engine. It carried 13 days of provisions in case the primary rockets failed, and the spacecraft had to wait for natural orbital decay to bring it down. The engineers were not entirely certain a human being could remain sane in orbit. Soviet psychologists had designed a fully automatic control system, and as a precaution, they placed the manual override controls inside a sealed envelope with a secret code. The theory being that anyone coherent enough to open the envelope and enter the code must, by definition, be sane enough to fly the ship. 2 people independently gave Gagarin the code before launch, because they liked him too much to make him fiddle with an envelope. The State Commission had also prepared 3 press bulletins, one for a successful flight, one for problems in orbit, one for a mission ending in death. During re-entry, Gagarin saw fire outside the porthole. He transmitted his last message to ground control. "I'm burning. Goodbye, comrades." He didn't know that the flames were normal plasma, the superheated air around any spacecraft during atmospheric re-entry. He was a few seconds away from certain death, completely calm, saying goodbye. The OKB-1 mission report, signed by Chief Designer Sergei Korolev on May 3, 1961, documented what had actually gone wrong. A capsule hatch that failed to close properly before launch, a retro-rocket separation anomaly during re-entry that sent the capsule spinning for 10 minutes before it finally stabilized. Gagarin ejected at 7 kilometers altitude and parachuted to a field near the city of Saratov. 2 farmers saw a figure in an orange suit with a large white helmet land in the field. They backed away. "Don't be afraid," Gagarin told them. "I am a Soviet citizen. I have descended from space. I need to find a telephone to call Moscow." He got his parade. 12 miles of motorcade through Moscow. Hero of the Soviet Union. Order of Lenin. the world's most famous face for a while. Then he was grounded. They couldn't risk losing him. And on March 27, 1968, while on a routine training flight in a MiG-15 UTI, his plane went down near Kirzhak. The exact cause has never been confirmed. Alexei Leonov, the first man to walk in space, believed a Sukhoi Su-15 passed within 20 meters of the aircraft at supersonic speed in poor weather, and the wake turbulence sent them into an uncontrolled spin. Gagarin was 34. This is what history looks like up close. Not the clean version. Not the parade and the medal and the name on a monument. The version where the hatch doesn't seal. The flames are outside the window and you say goodbye to people who can't hear you and continue flying anyway. Sushruta scraping through a decomposing body in the Ganga to understand what was underneath. Hillary warming his frozen boots over a stove at 27,900 feet before the final push. Lindbergh at hour 22, the ghosts riding beside him in the cockpit, the ocean with no visible end. The people who did everything first were not extraordinary because they had something the rest of us don't. They were extraordinary because they reached the point where turning back made more sense than going forward, and they went forward anyway. That's the only story that has ever mattered, and we're just getting started.